Hi, Bruce Newbury. Talk of the Town, mornings at 9 here on 1540 WADK. Well, you heard the news, maybe saw the article in this morning's paper. A group of secularists has placed what they call a seasonal banner in the State House. It's intended to be a reminder of the separation of church and state. The president of the Humanists of Rhode Island, Steve Ahlquist, says Roger Williams would be appalled by the recent controversy over the State House Christmas tree. And Steve Ahlquist joins me on the Talk of the Town line. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Bruce. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it very, very much. What does the banner say?
It says, "'Tis the season to celebrate the birth of Roger Williams and the separation of church and state."
Okay. You know that there's no words separation of church and state anywhere in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. You know that.
Yes, that is true, although the principle has been upheld by the Supreme Court several times, and separation of church and state is a term that was coined by Roger Williams, the founder of our state. It's something he believed in very, very strongly.
Sure.
It had a massive influence on James Madison and Thomas Jefferson in writing the Bill of Rights.
And as I said about a half an hour ago, and I appreciate you coming on so we could talk about this, the fact of the matter is, now you're saying that you're quoted as saying that the government of the United States, and Rhode Island in particular, is secular by nature and design. Now, let me ask about the government of the United States. Are you talking about the part of the government of the United States that doesn't talk about God?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, the fact that we're one nation under God, that the Declaration of Independence says that our Creator endowed us with certain unalienable rights, you know, the money says...
These are kind of old arguments, and I'll tell you, the Declaration of Independence is not a legal document. It was just a document to get people excited about a revolution.
Is that your answer?
I'm sorry? Yeah, the Declaration of Independence is not a legal document.
Okay, but we're not talking about a legal matter here, are we?
Well, aren't we talking like the First Amendment?
I haven't mentioned the First Amendment yet, but...
Okay, well, I'll mention the First Amendment about, the fact that, we're talking about, passing no laws establishing a religion.
Passing no laws? Now, okay, so that's...
And that's been extended by the court to the state, and that's also been extended to mean that, government should not be endorsing any one religion over another. Okay, so if in this Rhode Island State House there is a Christmas tree and a menorah, how is the government endorsing one religion? Oh, we didn't say that they are.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Your group. Excuse me, Steve. At least be Steve. I don't want to get this. I don't want to turn this into a stupid talk radio argument. So
that's okay.
If we can really focus on your issue, your group is hung your banner protesting these religious symbols. So
if you look at what our banner says, it says, "This is the season to celebrate the birth of Roger Williams and the separation of church and state." We have put up a banner that isn't protesting at all. We are expressing our opinion at this time of year. Roger Williams was born on December 21st, 1603, so it's completely seasonally appropriate to put up a banner at this time of year.
So in other words, you're not protesting?
What we're doing is we're taking advantage of the fact that anyone can put up any kind of display they want at this time of year at the State House to express their beliefs or non-beliefs as they wish. We are expressing our belief in the separation of church and state and our support for a secular government in Rhode Island and the United States.
Okay.
I don't see how our banner is any more in your face than the presence of Christmas trees or creches or a menorah or any other religious or non-religious symbol that could go up at the State House this time of year.
Okay. Then why take a shot at religion with your banner? Why not just say, "'Tis the season to celebrate Roger Williams"?
What was Roger Williams' singular accomplishment? He founded the government of Rhode Island as the first secular state anywhere on the earth, and he did so in the mid-1600s. He established the kind of government that America is today. And when he did that, he did something very brave, at the time completely radical. There was only theocracies before he established Rhode Island as a democracy, and a place with freedom of speech and freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, he called it. He welcomed Muslims, he welcomed atheists, he welcomed Catholics, he welcomed Jews, at a time when many of those people could not find a place anywhere in the world to be.
Okay. Again, you're skirting a larger issue, Rhode Island is part of the United States of America.
Yes, it is.
If Roger Williams was really true to his beliefs, why wouldn't he have done all that he could to keep Rhode Island from joining the United States?
Well, Roger Williams was dead by the time Rhode Island joined the United States.
Why didn't he do it while he was alive?
Well, there wasn't a United States while he was alive.
Then the fact of the matter is that Rhode Island is part of the United States of America,
which has a constitution that guarantees freedom of religion.
Sure. And if in the State House of the state of Rhode Island there's a Christmas tree and a menorah, how is that promoting the establishment of a government religion?
Well, what I'm saying is if you...
No, could you answer my question, sir? It's not. The answer is it's not. Isn't the answer, Steve Ahlquist, isn't the answer the state is not promoting one religion, we're just trying to get something else in there? Isn't that your point?
My point is this government is not promoting a religion? I don't think that's what I said. What I'm saying is
I'm asking you how it is that you come to the conclusion that the state is promoting one religion over the other, because it doesn't appear that it is.
I don't think that I said that. In fact, I said just the opposite. I said
But that's what the Constitution says, that there will be no establishment of a state religion.
What I'm saying, well, you brought this kind of stuff up, and I don't know.
Well, you brought up separation of church and state, which is intellectually dishonest.
But you're saying that the separation of church and state is intellectually dishonest?
Because there is no wording separation of church and state in the documents that you're quoting.
Okay, well, first of all, we're not quoting the document. We're quoting Roger Williams. We are quoting Roger Williams. No, we're not. We're not quoting
You can't separate the two out, Steve.
If the words are not in the Constitution, how could we be quoting the Constitution? That's silly.
But you're separating.
You're putting words in my mouth. What I'm trying to say is that Roger Williams is the person who coined the term separation of church and state. We see that as an essential value for the United States, and we put that on a banner and placed it in the State House. There is nothing controversial about what we did. In fact, if you go to the State House and go to the little museum there, you will see that Roger Williams is lauded for his contribution, separation of church and state.
No one's quibbling with that.
What's that?
I don't think anyone's quibbling with that. I think you're trying.
When we put up a banner, why would anybody quibble with our banner, which is just us saying, "Hey, this is the reason to celebrate Roger Williams and his legacy"?
Well, I think. So
what do you have against Roger Williams exactly? You would be saying that separation of church and state is intellectually dishonest. That sounds almost anti-American to me.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying that without the words on your banner, separation of church and state, you have no controversy. Therefore, you get no attention. That's what I'm saying.
That separation of church and state is somehow controversial?
I'm saying, of course it is. It's only controversial
if it's a value that the United States is founded on.
You brought it up. You tell me.
No, I'm saying it's not controversial.
You hung the banner. You tell me.
Yeah, we hung up a banner which just simply says that we support separation of church and state. The same way someone else put up a Christmas tree that says we support Christmas, or someone put up a menorah saying we celebrate our Jewish heritage.
But separation
There's nothing different about what we're doing than what any of these other groups are doing.
Well,
and yet, when we do it, it's somehow controversial, even though the idea of separation of church and state is built into the very DNA of our country and our state.
But it's not.
And to deny that or call it intellectually dishonest, I would say is unpatriotic.
But it's not.
It is. Well, what are you saying? That when you deny the principles the United States was founded on, you're not being unpatriotic?
You're denying the principles, not me.
What principle am I denying?
The fact that you're insisting that the word separation of church and state, which do not appear in the Constitution or any law of the United States of America.
Well, that's actually not true. It was mentioned in the Supreme Court rulings. And those Supreme Court rulings are part of the law of the United States of America.
Okay.
I think people should probably get used to the idea that the Supreme Court interprets laws and that the phrasings that they put into their decision actually do become the way we interpret our laws. So separation of church and state is the way we interpret, one of the ways we interpret the Constitution, the First Amendment to the Constitution.
But
and to say that that's not the case is actually being intellectually dishonest. That's the intellectually dishonest part, to try to somehow weasel out of the fact that separation of church and state is important to the country by saying, well, it's not in the Constitution. You know what else is not in the Constitution? Tons and tons of laws.
I'm not sure.
Every day.
I didn't go to law school. I'm not familiar with the legal expression tons and tons of laws.
Well, then why would you bring up why would you start talking about what legality is if you don't know?
You're backpedaling, and let's come back. Let's come back to the simple question. Let's come back to the simple question. Why not? Why did your banner say? Why not just put a banner up that says, "We celebrate the birth of Roger Williams, who was born in December"? Why?
Well, what did Roger Williams do?
He founded the state of Rhode Island for purposes of religious freedom. But doesn't everybody know that?
Well, part of that religious freedom came by separating church and state. The reason people could be free was because the church and state were separate, and the state could not tell you what religion to have, and the churches could not tell the state how to operate.
Sure,
that's how the separation of church and state works. That's what he did. When he made religious freedom, he did so by even using the word a wall between church and state. He came up with the idea of separating church and state.
Sure.
Hadn't been done before, hadn't been tried before. First time here in Rhode Island, it was his singular accomplishment. It was the greatest accomplishment he had. Now, he had many other accomplishments. That was one of the biggest ones. Founding the state on the concept of religious freedom. To deny that or to try to reinterpret that, that's the intellectually dishonest part.
Well, again, there is no separation of church and state that is, as I've said before. But
yes, there is. That's actually there is.
At least, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to argue the minutia with you. But here's the thing:
this is the main point. The minutia would be anything else, but the main point is separation of church and state. Now you're saying that's minutia.
Without those words on your banner, you have no controversy. Therefore, you get no.
There is no controversy because those words on the banner are not controversial. The controversy is all in the heads of people who somehow want to take offense at it when there is no...
But every December, Steve, they are controversial, and at no other time during the year are they as controversial, and you know that. Now, this is not your first... This is not... Just a minute. I only have about a minute, Steve, but let me ask you this. This is, full disclosure, this is not your first time engaging in this battle, correct?
No, we are actually a very active secular group, and we've done things like we've had a cross removed from a median strip in Providence. My niece was involved in a prayer banner case in Cranston, Rhode Island, and we are adamantly working to prevent what we see as illegal or improper crossovers between church and state. Absolutely.
All right, we'll have to let the argument go for another day. I thank you for coming on. I applaud you for coming on and engaging in this. I really do, and I thank you so much. I suppose it would be a real cheap shot to wish you Merry Christmas, but there you go. Thanks very, very much. Steve Ahlquist, who's the president of the Humanists of Rhode Island, and he hung the banner up in the State House that you can read about. 10 o'clock.